Hi, I'm Deputy Jason Owen. I'm with the Olmsted County Sheriff's Office. Since we can't meet in person today, I'm talking to you on this pre-recorded video I made. It's from my mobile office, also known as my squad car. Anyway, I've been a deputy sheriff here in Olmsted County for about 14 years now. I've worked in a variety of positions here over the years, and most of them as a patrol deputy. But I've also worked in our court security division, civil process division, our warrants division, transport, and might be some others too, but I can't think of them right now. But anyway, I've received a list of questions from your class about my job in law enforcement, and let me try to get those answered here for you. So let's see here. The first question I think you guys had for me was asking about what my favorite experience while being an officer. So I guess I'm going to make this more like a general kind of answer than a specific scenario that I was ever in. But so right now I'm the community officer for Stewartville. I've been doing this now for a few months, and I'm really liking this part of my job. It might sound kind of silly, but I've actually really enjoyed working closely just with the city administration and of a small town, and also getting to work inside the schools more, and that's been a lot of fun for me. And just it's a unique opportunity getting to work in a large department like Olmsted County does have, but I get to focus on working in this primarily in the small community of Stewartville at the same time. And it's just it's a good feeling to be able to go out in your community and help people out, and because that's mostly what we do is help people. And yeah, I really like that part about my job. Second question you guys had for me, I think, is what's the best part of being an officer? Well, quite a few things here I have to get into here. So one of the things I like about being an officer is getting to learn all these different variety of tools and the training that we do, learning to use these tools and applying the different tools. And we do different kinds of technology for whether it's for mapping crime scenes or finding information on people that we're looking for or dealing with. We get to train on use different types of tools like our firearms, tasers, spike strips, sprays. We carry shields, different types of body armors. We do a lot of training here at the sheriff's office. I mean, we do a lot of training. And
back in the county, and you can clear me from that.
there might be days where I feel like I don't want to go to training every day, but I have to admit that our training that we do here at the sheriff's office is probably more interesting and more fun than what you're going to find at other jobs. So another one of the things that we do is just a variety of calls we see, whether that be a medical emergency call, assault calls that we're going to, traffic enforcement. We do a lot of that, obviously, or it's following up on a theft report, going to a school to talk with kids, or even just leading a parade through town. We do a lot of different things, some of them fun, some of them can be difficult. We also we get in a lot of situations that we don't really even ourselves want to be in. We're at a lot of death scenes. If people that pass away, we'll have to go to those calls. People that have accidents, we have to go to those calls. But we do a lot of different things, and don't get me wrong, our job can also be boring at times too. You could be sitting in a blizzard doing nothing for 8 to 12 hours just because there's no one's around, nothing, you can't get to anything. But sometimes in our line of work, having a boring day is actually a good thing. So another thing that's nice about this job is there's a lot of different positions and specialties that you can do, especially in our office. We have positions for patrol deputies. We have civil process, warrant officers.
1503.
Sorry about the radio there. Prison transport deputies, detectives, administrative positions, captains, sergeants, that kind of thing. We also have specialty areas such as our ERU, aka SWAT team, K9 units. We have our forensic mapping unit. They are the unit that would investigate like major vehicle crashes or major crime scenes by doing their electronic mapping of the scene and that kind of thing. We have our drug recognition experts, primarily focused on DUI arrests, whether that be alcohol and or drug-related DUIs. Crisis negotiators. We have deputies who specialize in training our other deputies. We have deputies that specialize in weapon armoring, repairing weapons, and keeping them up to snuff. So there's a long list of opportunities to find something here that interests you. So another question here is that someone asked what motivates you the most, and had to think about that one for a minute. But what motivates me most really isn't my job. So personally, I try to keep my priorities, in my case, to be more my faith first, my family, and my job is third. And for me, the primary purpose of my job is to support my family, and I actually do whatever I can to avoid putting my job before them. And I think that's just a good rule to live by. And now, keeping that priority in mind, my job is still ranked pretty high up there. It's still number 3, but I put a lot of work into my job, especially because I know that what I do actually is having a direct effect on my community and my family. So, tips I'd give a high schooler who wants to pursue a career as an officer. Well, one thing I'd say to a high schooler who's thinking about a career in law enforcement, or they aren't thinking about it now, but maybe later down the road, is that you don't really need to decide now. Personally, in my case, I went to college at the University of Minnesota, and I have a 4-year degree in computer science, which doesn't really sound like it would be used much in law enforcement, but it actually kind of is. But I had no intention of going into law enforcement at that time. I worked for 2 years after college at a research company as a computer programmer, and after 2 years, I ended up not liking it, and I just couldn't stand sitting in front of a computer in my little cubicle 40 hours a week for the rest of my life. And I was bored. I was really bored. In my case, I had family, some brother-in-laws that were in law enforcement, and that kind of got me interested to begin with, and so I just did ride-alongs with them. I did some ride-alongs with other agencies, and after doing that, I was still interested, and I ultimately just quit my computer programming job and then came down to Rochester, took a few necessary classes I needed for law enforcement at the RCTC here, and went through what's called the skills program, completed that, passed my post-licensing test, and became a police officer soon after that. So I highly recommend, if you are interested in getting into law enforcement, that you get yourself exposed to what it's like by doing ride-alongs with different agencies. I know Olmsted County Sheriff's Office, we do normally allow ride-alongs with the public. However, right now, with everything going on, we're not doing those. So, but I'm certain in the future, once everything settles down, we'll be able to start doing those again. So I also encourage you to, go after a 4-year degree of some sort as opposed to the 2-year degree. I know the minimum requirement for law enforcement is a 2-year degree, but you're going to find yourself competing against a lot of other candidates with 4-year degrees, and you just want to have whatever edge you can get. A little bit more on that. I think I mentioned how I went through like post-licensing and skills course and that, but let me just talk a little bit more about the education requirements you do need to be a peace officer in Minnesota. First off, like I mentioned, you do have to have at least a 2-year degree. Preferably, I think you should get a 4-year degree. Secondly, you would need to have taken and passed a law enforcement skills program, and those are offered throughout various colleges in the state. One of the places that's offered is here in Rochester. So the skills program, what it is it's around like a 12-week program. So it's 12 weeks and it's 6 days a week. Pretty much, I think, 8 hours every day. So it can be quite demanding. You'll have to kind of adjust your lives to handle all that time you're going to be spending doing that course. But it's basically there to give you some additional academic training, as well as a lot of the hands-on type of training, including some driving instruction training, firearms, and you'll be doing a lot of scenario-based training as well. It'll also include some physical testing, like very similar to the type of testing that you'll have to go through if you're going through a hiring process at a agency here in Minnesota. And then once you've completed the skills program, you're eligible to take what's known as the post test, the police officer standards and training test, I believe is what that stands for. And you're required to pass that in order to be eligible to be hired as a peace officer in Minnesota. That question that you guys had for me was, what encouraged you to become an officer? Well, kind of like I mentioned earlier, it began with me searching for a career that I liked, because I just was not happy with my first choice. I also had some family in law enforcement that I could talk to about it, and that piqued my interest some more at the time too. So I was just searching for a more satisfying career, which in my case I found in law enforcement. And I know it's not for everyone, but it's been the right fit for me. Someone asked here too then about what's the physical training like to become a police officer. Well, I mentioned a little bit that in the skills program they'll have some physical requirements. It is important to be fit. It's there is a lot of training involved. That if you're not fit, those training days can be long and hard. But we're not. It's not like we're running after people every day. That doesn't happen that often. But there is some minimum tests that they do have you do when you're hired here, and as well as most other agencies. Most of them do what's called the Cooper's standards, and that involves a few different types of exercises, strength and agility tests. And those would include one of them's a vertical jump test. So essentially, you're standing with 2 feet, and they're measuring how high you can jump off of 2 feet from a standing position. We also do the sit-up test. There's a portion for push-ups. There's a 300-meter run, and also a 1.5 mile run. And you have a minimum standard you need to get in all of those in order to, first of all, pass your skills course, and then also be eligible for that by whoever's hiring you. I had some questions about canine. One was, have you ever had a canine? And no, I have not had a canine. Maybe earlier in my career, I would have considered that. Thing about having a canine is that it requires a lot of life changes, not only at work, but also at home. Having small kids at home isn't necessarily a good thing, and you need to have a home that's capable of accommodating a dog. So you need a large fenced-in yard with at least a 6 to 8 foot tall fence. These dogs can climb fences. Most of them have a roofed kennel. But yes, keep in mind that the dog not only is going to be working with you, it's also going to be living with you 24/7. So I did had some more questions on canines, so I actually had to refer some of those questions to one of our canine deputies. So I asked Deputy Ryan Mangan, whose dog is named Ryko, about someone asked, what is the purpose of a canine? And I'm going to read his response to me, to you guys, okay? So he said the purpose of a canine is to assist officers and deputies as a locating tool. The canine is trained to locate items such as evidence that is thrown or hidden by a suspect, and also humans, both good and bad. The canine can be utilized to locate a suspect who has fled on foot or is hiding in a house or building. The canine can also help with locating a missing child or an elderly person with dementia or Alzheimer's who's wandered away. Ultimately, the canine enhances officer safety by utilizing their senses to locate suspects more efficiently and safely than a human searching with limited senses. The canine also acts as a partner to the handler. If a handler gets into a fight with a suspect, the dog can be released from the squad car to assist the handler. Canines can also be used for presence in certain situations to encourage people to cooperate or comply with law enforcement. So what are the qualifications of becoming a canine? A handler, and this is for Olmsted County, a handler needs to have a minimum of 3 years experience as a deputy or police officer. The handler should have a high level of work ethic and be proven to make good decisions in high stress situations. The handler needs to be in good physical condition and commit to the position for at least 5 years, as the working life of a dog years is about 8 years. So they require us to commit to at least 5 years, and it's almost always going to be more than that. They want you to, because once a dog is attached to a handler, it's difficult to have that dog go to a different handler. So, and typically the working life of a dog is about 8 years. So that actually was the end of the questions you guys had for me. If you guys have more or want to get in touch with me for anything, I'm going to show you here. This is my car. Oh, okay, that's backwards because I forgot the switches over. So my email address is Owen, OWEN.Jason, JASON @co.olmsted.mn.us. So if you want to, guys, get in contact me if you have any other questions, you can do that. If you want ride-alongs in the future, those hopefully will be available again, but right now we just can't do them. But other than that, yeah, if you have any more questions, feel free to email me. If you couldn't get my email, you can get it from your teacher and such too, okay? But thanks for listening to this, and you guys have a great day. Thanks.